All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. With me, as always, is our marketing director, Jen Waybauer. Jen, good morning.
Morning.
And I am beyond honored to have this week's guest. I don't think he needs much of an introduction for those of you that fall within our typical audience. But for those of you that don't know, a wonderful friend and colleague, Barry Habib. Barry, good morning.
Good morning. How are you,
Um,
Adam and Jen?
we're doing great. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, Barry, obviously, we've talked about what our show does and what our general audience is, and what the general subject matter is. Although, obviously, there's a lot of different content that you've brought to the table for people in my business, people in loan origination, certainly those in the real estate world in general. And I certainly don't want to separate those industries by any means because we're so heavily intertwined. But I think we're going to want to depart a little bit from our normal MO, speaking strictly about lead generation tactics and techniques and ideas and client retention and so on and so forth, because of the unique nature of the content that you do bring to the table. So, without too much delay, I'd really like to jump into a couple of things. Most importantly, there's obviously been a lot of news as of late about, the economy, recessions, what that does to mortgage rates, what that does to the real estate market, so on and so forth. And I don't think that there's any doubt in anyone's mind, particularly that of our audience, that you really are the global leading mind in mortgage economic content these days. So if you don't mind, I'd really like to delve into that subject and let you have the floor as far as what you're seeing, what you're predicting, how that's going to impact loan originators, how that's going to impact real estate agents, and really have your take on it.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you were there several months back when the 10-year Treasury was a lot higher, and I made some pretty crazy calls saying that we were going to see the lowest rates we've ever seen. And I know a lot of heads turned, and there's a lot of disbelief. But here we are. We're on our way where now yields are 50 basis points less than where they were when we were talking, and they are still, in my opinion, headed a lot lower. So many of the reasons for this are, you just take a look what's happening around the world, right? You've got $13 trillion in negative yields around the globe. Negative yields, just think about that. That means it's like, here's my money and I've got to pay you to hold it. So, you're not storing furniture here where you got to, put it in. It's your money. But now instead of getting interest on it, you're paying for them to hold your money. In fact, there are actually mortgages in some places in Europe with a negative interest rate. Could you imagine that? That you're getting paid to take their money on a mortgage. I want you to just let that sink in just for a minute. And what this does is it really destroys earnings of lending institutions and banks. So it makes it very, very difficult for them. And part of the reason for that is just there's so much debt in the world, and it's been proven that high debt is something that compresses interest rates much lower. And here in the United States, we are no stranger to getting in debt. But when you look at yields in the U.S., and we looked at them in the past and saw they were much higher, they have come down, but they're still much higher than most of the globe. Pretty much anywhere else, you're going to see lower yields. We're closely tied to the German Bund. That's minus 40 basis points. So negative 40 basis points. That's a lot. So we're even at 2% or so for the U.S. 10-year Treasury. That's a very big difference. When you take a look at the UK, they're at 83 basis points or 80 basis points right now. We're at 200 basis points. There's a very big difference there. Now in the UK, their equivalent of the Fed funds rate is much lower than ours, but ours is heading down. Yields will continue to go down, not in a straight line, but they're going to continue to go down. There's no inflation to pressure rates higher. The global competition is there. And the U.S. is already starting to see a slowdown in many areas. And this, I think, will lead to a recession that is inevitable. It's going to happen. I think 2020 is a good estimation of time for that recession. And historically, during recessions, you're going to see interest rates decline. So the way I look at the technicals and the charts, I think we get below the lowest yields ever at 1.37. Now, you might recall I called 1.39 when the 10-year Treasury was like 2.5% years ago, and didn't go to 1.39, went to 1.37. So it's pretty darn close.
Pretty close.
But I think that we're going to see rates even lower than that on the 10-year. I think you're going to see interest rates on mortgages lower than you've ever seen in your lifetime. And it's going to be an exciting time for us. You're going to have a lot of refinance activity. Doesn't mean wait, because you should do somebody's loan today and do a no closing cost loan or keep your costs low. I mean, this is the strategies you have to now think about in combating fintech companies. And this is part of lead generation is how do I address my customer today? And a lot of loan originators are out there and they do one mortgage at a time. Never do that. All of my career, one of the things that really helped me grow exponentially in my production was understanding that you don't do one loan at a time. You should always be doing two mortgages at a time. And the things to contemplate there are, number one, there are economic events like we're talking about here. So how do economic events play a role in what I'm going to advise my customer? Keyword being advise, because you don't want to be a salesperson, you want to be an advisor. You really have to exceed their expectations. They'll come to you what they think they want, but an advisor gives them what they need. And there's a big difference there. If you go to a physician who's a fulfillment person, you say, this is what's wrong with me, doc, and they'll give you a treatment for that. But somebody who looks deeper and not treating the symptom, but treating the root cause, that's the person that you want to deal with. So those economic events that we know, probably going to see a recession, going to see rates decline. Why would we want to pay points? Why would we want to pay upfront MI? Let somebody else give bad advice on that and say, let me save you money monthly by giving you upfront MI. Well, it takes 4 years to break even. You'll either move or certainly refinance within the 4 years. Why should you pay points? That's silly. Why should you, in fact, pay a lot of fees? Don't take the lowest rate. Take a higher rate and incorporate some of those closing costs and fees, because you're going to refinance out of this thing in the next year, 18 months or so at a much lower rate. So this is what an advisor does. This is what fintech companies can't do. And that generates a lot of leads, because you're now going to get those incredibly pleased customers tell everybody else they know about you. So this is what we have to do. And now one of the things that comes up is how does it affect the real estate market? Well, we look at the facts here, okay, because the media doesn't. And when you look at past recessions, you'll see that home values do very well during recessions. And you might scratch your head and say, well, why? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I get it initially that it might not.
It does seem contradictory.
Yes, but because interest rates drop so precipitously, you now bring a whole additional crop of potential buyers. And in sheer numbers, you make up for some of those people that perhaps, unfortunately, don't have a job or things like that have occurred. You make up for it in sheer numbers. The other thing, too, is if you take a look by contrast, it looks so much more attractive to purchase a home when interest rates decline precipitously, because it makes the monthly payment look really attractive compared to renting in many parts of the country. So when you take a look at that contrast, it helps homeownership. So the facts are the facts, and historically speaking, real estate does very well during recessionary periods. So I think that being in this industry, you've made a good choice, because you've kind of made yourself recession proof if you take the right steps, if you take the right actions. Now, those are the economic events. There's also life events. And are you discussing that with your customers? So when you're doing their mortgage, you want to do two mortgages at a time, never do one at a time. Are you talking to them about what their changing needs may be? Are you looking to maybe get married? Are you looking to have a family? Are you looking to be an empty nester? Are you looking to potentially, what life events? Is your job situation going to change? And would that put you at a different status that you're going to say, hey, I want the nicer cars, I want the nicer home? What life events can you see on the horizon that will cause you to now say, maybe this mortgage isn't the end all, but in fact, it is a beautiful stepping stone to get to the next place. Think about a Google map. When you get in your car and you pop in a Google map, very rarely are you fortunate enough to go in a direct line to your destination. You reach a certain intersection, then you have to make an adjustment. Well, think of the mortgages like that. You're getting from point A to point B with this mortgage today. But from point B to point C, think about that today. Don't think about it when you reach point B. See, when you think about it today, then you could better structure the most opportune loan, not to get you from point A to forever, which is what most people do, but point A to point B, and then how we're going to move from point B to point C. Most people don't. It sounds so logical, right? You would think that everyone would do that, but almost no one ever does. And when you talk to your customer that way, you quite frankly blow their mind. And you close pretty much everybody that you talk to.
Well, and you probably retain those clients for life as well.
I know everybody loves that talk, client, my customer, your loan originator client. That's just bullshit. It's just talking, okay? I mean, you want to do it, you do it. You have to prove that you're worth coming back to, okay? You have to, I say this in my talks, but, don't be always available. Be always worth waiting for. Okay? That's what you want to be. You want to be that brilliant person that people line up to see, that people will wait for, that people will make sure that they don't make a move unless they talk to you, because the advice that you have is so important and you're so knowledgeable that what's going to come out of your mouth will literally be life-changing for them. And that's what we need to do. And it's doable. It's doable for everybody. I mean, you think about the gift that everybody's been given in equity, right? And by the way, do a boatload of refinances right now. You should be doing refinance, because if you don't, somebody else is going to do that, okay? I hate when people say, so they wear this badge like, oh, I'm 97% purchased. Well, why? Why are you neglecting all of those wonderful people that trusted you? What are you doing with them? Don't they still need your help? Aren't they still important? So don't wear this badge like, I'm 98% purchased. Look, that's not a smart move, in my opinion. The smartest thing for you to do is to take care of your customers. Now, should you still be doing great stuff for your real estate agents? Should you still be doing a lot of purchase business? Of course. But it shouldn't be at sacrificing those people that trusted you and did business with you, that you sold them on the upfront, that you're their lender for life. Well, then prove it. Do their refinance. So do a boatload of refinances right now, team. And when you do, think about this. Don't make it about rate, because rate should almost be insignificant. Make it about life events. Make it about future economic events. And here's exactly what I mean. People have been given this gift of equity. Home prices have appreciated significantly in the past several years. What are you doing with that equity? They've also indebted themselves tremendously on average. By and large, people have lots of debts. If you took some of that equity, paid off the debt, doesn't matter what rate you bring. You could put them 1.5% higher in rate, even though you won't do that, okay, because rates are great, but I'm being ridiculous here, okay? Give them a 1.5% higher in rate. You know what happens when you pay off a reasonable sum of debts? I'm not talking about somebody crazy. We could show you, we document this. You wind up saving them about $1,000 a month in monthly payment. You could take some cash out, do some renovations to still save them close to $1,000 a month. And instead of pocketing it, show them that, hey, you have a great rate right now. You're happy making your payments. Take that extra $1,000 a month I'm saving you. Pay down your new mortgage with it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to save 10, 12, 14 years of monthly payments compared to what you would have had if you kept your existing mortgage. So pay your mortgage off 10, 12 years sooner, okay? How great is that? Go ahead and save yourself, 130, 140 payments at whatever it was, $3,000 a month. How's that feel? 12 years earlier, have no mortgage payments. How's that feel? And best yet, 12 years from now, when you've paid off your mortgage and your balance is zero, when you compare it to what you would have had if you would have kept paying your mortgage at that very low rate that you have right now, you have an extra $250,000 or $300,000 that you have in equity, because instead of having a $300,000 balance on that existing loan that you have, your balance with us is zero. So now use that for your kids' college. Isn't that on your mind? Hasn't everyone watching this right now, the three of us on here included, haven't we all thought, perhaps recently, do I have enough money for retirement? Haven't we all thought of that? Do you think your customer's any different? I mean, really, think about that. Why not talk to them in the language they want to be spoken to? Why not touch them here? Why not do something that's going to change their life instead of looking at them like I've got a target on their back with a dollar sign on it? Do good out there and help these people by making a difference, because nobody else can do it. Their attorney can't do it. Their accountant can't do it. Their financial planner can't do it. Nobody can do this but you. And yet, what a waste if you don't. And those people who don't do it, you make yourself a much easier target for fintech companies who are literally out there trying to replace you and put you out of business. Don't whistle past the graveyard. Please heed this warning, because it's happening, and it's happening very quickly. So this is a very important time for you to get serious.
Wow. So I don't know that I can express to you the gratitude that we have for you telling our audience that. Certainly not just the loan originators, but I think that the real estate agents really need to take that to heart, and certainly the little bit of consumer audience that we get. These are some really big points for future years and decades for people's fiscal health and financial well-being. When we're starting to talk about things that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars when it comes to savings and money that you're able to keep in your pocket or reallocate for things like your kids' college education or the nicer home, the nicer car, whatever the case may be. We're not talking about the difference between you guys saving a dime on a cheeseburger between McDonald's and Burger King here. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for every consumer, every one of your clients is a big, big deal. I don't know that any of us are good at putting that kind of weight on how important our careers are, again, versus the financial planner, versus the shrink, versus the attorney, etc. So I really hope our audience hears what you have to say there.
Adam, I think we all have the heart. We want to do good, okay? But you can do so much good in the world, and you can really change so many lives for the better. So this is a great opportunity that you have to do this. So just the little talk that we have had so far, just please follow that closely and take heed to that. But I do want to also talk, because I promised you and Jen that we're going to talk about lead generation as well, right?
You did. And I know that there's a interwoven path between good lead generation and, in theory, being famous, as it were. And I mean, I've known who you are for a long, long time, and we've been friends for some of that period, and we've shared the stage a half a dozen times everywhere from Vegas to Nashville and on. But, you know, between Rock of Ages and the Talking Head news production type stuff, and I've for those of you that are watching, I've actually even seen Barry sing karaoke in Nashville, and it's really impressive stuff. So where do those intertwine? Where does being famous and lead generation come to a head, Barry?
So here's the thing: you've all got to be famous, and it's easy to do today. So back in the 90s, I was very blessed that I did a lot of writing, and CNBC picked me up and had me on. And listen, I was just very fortunate. I did a very good job on the show, and they liked me. And
you must have. It ran 13 years.
Yeah, they gave me my own show for 13 years, but many years on, and a lot of networks had me on for a long time. And I still do some Fox. I was on Fox last week too. So, you know, we still do stuff like that, but that was the way to become kind of famous back then, because that was the only way to have massive reach. But today, everybody could do that. I mean, look at what you're doing, right? You and Jen are on here, and you've got your own show. So you guys are famous in our industry, right? And what I want people to know is that it is really critically important to be famous. And the reason for that is because when you are well known, when you are famous, and your reputation precedes you, then you walk into a real estate office and they're like, "Oh, hey, I know, I watch you. Oh, great stuff." This might be the first time they're talking to you, but it's a lot different than looking up at you and looking back down, right? Like, who is this person that just came in here, right? Your clients. It's really important that you're famous with them, whether they're a previous customer or whether they're a new customer, so that before you ever meet with them, they now have a different level of respect for you, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, for your insights, and for your reputation as being someone who is seen as a leader. And you think about the way the conversation goes with that customer. There's not a whole heck of a lot of negotiation, right? If you're doing business with somebody who's famous, you kind of almost feel like, wow, I'm lucky I get to work with you. That's the way you want your customer to feel. Your customer needs to feel, oh man, I get to work with you.
Now, you're the authority.
You're the authority. So it's a lot easier to say than it is to do, but it's not that hard to do. So what do you need? You need a medium to do it. You've got LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. You know, Instagram is a much younger crowd. So Instagram will be really good if you have an idea of wanting to work with first-time homebuyers. Now, everybody uses Facebook. Younger people use Facebook as well, but they're more drawn to Instagram. Now, if you're going to be working on reverse mortgages, don't waste your time with Instagram, okay? That's exclusively Facebook.
Snapchat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll get a lot of business on reverse mortgages there, right? So what you want to make sure that you do is you understand your audience, then who you're targeting. And you want to use things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, specifically targeted for where you want to go. Facebook is probably going to be the best one. LinkedIn is great too. But you all have a huge resource in these networks that you built. So make sure you belong to groups, and joining groups is easy. So when you join groups and you look at the resources you have, you'd be shocked at how many people that are in your friends. You might have 4,000 friends, but how many of them, A, receive your content? Not a lot, because Facebook is not in their algorithm putting it out there, because you haven't created engagement. Okay, so I want to talk about all these things. And the content that you're putting out there isn't letting them know what you do as an expert. You might put the nice picture of you with your pet. I love animals. I've got 5 of them. Okay, I've got 3 cats, all rescues, 2 dogs. I love, love, love animals. Okay, I'm the guy that you see a dog on the street, I get on my knee and
I got to pet him. I'll be back.
That's me. Okay, so the thing of it is that while I love that, I bet you of your 4,000 friends, very few know what you do. Now imagine if they all knew what you do, and imagine if they were all getting your content. We've seen this transition happen. You see, so the first thing you have to do is join the groups. It's easy to do. Join your industry groups, because Facebook is really kind of doing more of a living room effect where you get these groups, and then have amazing content that's useful, that's knowledgeable, that you post. And by doing videos like this that you can post and create value for those people, well, then you kind of grow exponentially, but also create engaging content. And you see this all the time. We do this a lot. Hey, what was the color of your first car? How old were you when you bought your first home? What was the rate on your first mortgage that you ever received?
Sure, whip posts. They've been common for years.
Use those, because that creates engagement. And by the way, you want to create great engagement? Wish people a happy birthday. You get your list of birthdays, go there and put on their wall, happy birthday, use their name, put a nice note. Does it take some time? Yes. But then when you respond, they respond back to you. You now create engagement, and you will create a wider net of people that your content will go to. These are things that are really important for us to do if we want to use social media correctly to generate leads, because all this stuff generates leads. And quite frankly, lead generation, when used with social media, it's the most cost effective, number one. And it's also going to give you the greatest impact, because you do it once and it goes out to everybody. So you get that unbelievable gain. If we go out and we try and generate leads by visiting real estate agents, hey, that's great. It's very effective. And you're shaking hands, you're pressing the flesh, you're looking into people's eyes. Who could argue with how great that is? It's great. But it's one at a time. If you can create great content that makes you famous with a group of people that's consistent and that's valuable, you now really have both sides of it, okay? Because you still want to go out and press the fest. But think about when you go out now and you go those one-on-ones, when people look at you, oh, yeah, I love your stuff. Oh, it's great. That really helped me out. Whole different conversation.
It is.
So what content do you provide? I mean, there's so much, a difference between a pre-qual and pre-approval, how to improve your credit. Think about all of the things that you answer questions for your customers or your referral sources every single day. Think. So don't just respond, but think and say, wow, man, I get a lot of those questions. Let me put out a video. And by doing that, I now answer that question for everybody. Because if 4 or 5 customers of mine or referral sources of mine are hitting me with this, that means there's a whole universe out there of people experiencing the same thing. So what's the cost of waiting? What's the forecasted appreciation of my market? What does a recession mean? All the things we just talked about, okay? So this is important for you to be able to create videos. Now, we obviously we do this for our members. We make it very easy for them. We create the script. We turn your monitor or your phone into a teleprompter, and we call that Social Studio, where it's got a script for you. You just read the script, then you post it. And we make them a minute long so that they're friendly for Instagram. But with Instagram TV now, you can kind of go longer than that. But there's an incredible movement towards this, and what we're seeing is nothing short of extraordinary results. People are getting 10,000 views in a week. They're getting people that said, oh, I didn't know you did that, or rekindling with real estate agents, or hey, could you help me too? And especially now with refinancing. Is this the right time for you to refinance? Just think about that as a title. Okay, should you refinance? And then just do a 1-minute video and watch your phone blow up. Okay, I mean, it's that easy. It's that easy. And
It is, no question. For those of you watching, when Barry's referring to scripts and members and so on and so forth, he's referring to MBS Highway. And if you're a loan originator and you don't know what MBS Highway is, you're probably living in a cave on Mars. And if you are in the real estate industry, check with your partners on this, because the content and the data that comes across, it can turn someone from zero to expert overnight. Let me put it that way. Barry has made a career, a lifetime career, out of making sure that the people that are in that membership, as he describes it, are experts with the data that he tirelessly researches, assembles, collates, and puts out to us. So for those of you watching, do pay some attention to MBS Highway if you're not already.
Well, we try and make it easy. We know you're busy. So we try and make it really easy, but very, very high impact. And make you the advisor, the expert. That's what you need to be. The best way to generate business, the best way to increase your income, and all through my career, is very, very simple. Convert more of the opportunities. If you can convert conversation to application, or if you're a real estate agent, if you can convert conversation to contract, you are going to make a boatload more money. I mean, that's the real key. That's the magic. That's where it all happens. And the way to do that is with trust. You build trust two ways. Way number one is all the things we've been talking about. Be the expert. Incent that customer to move forward by showing them that you're the expert and explaining to them and articulating the financial opportunity. People shop for real estate with their eyes. They see the property, become attached with their heart, but the decision to buy is a financial decision. Articulate the financial opportunity, and you'll speak to them in the language that converts them. The other way to build trust is tell them all the bad stuff. Go out of your way to tell them everything bad about the property or about the loan. Tell them everything bad, because by doing that, they will trust you. And this is all about, sales is all about trust. People will trust you more if you respond to them, not as if you're on opposite ends of the table, where they're on that side, you're on this side, but where you're on the same side, treating them like your child, your parent, your sibling, your best friend, and you're saying, here's what you really need to look out for. Here's what's not so great about this. Now, there's good stuff here, and we're going to tell you all the good stuff, but I want you to know all the bad stuff too. The world changes, the relationship changes, but so many people are afraid to do it because they're so darn terrified of saying anything wrong because it's going to damage my little sale. So let go. Be strong enough, be brave enough to let go. Forget your commission. Just care about the customer and watch, change your mind, change the world, team.
That's brilliant. That we're implementing trust by telling them everything bad is... Barry, I can't... That may be one of the most solid tips that we've had on this show in 2 years of running it.
Thanks. That's all good stuff. Look, and that's what we want, right? I mean, you don't want to sell somebody. You want to help somebody, right? I mean, that's what this is about. People in life that get it know that this is about giving. Okay, and I know the people listening, they get it, okay, because they wouldn't be listening unless they're trying to improve themselves and do better for the purpose of helping others. And that's what we just have to convey to them, that we're here to help them first.
Let me ask you one. I know we're going to run long for those of you watching, and just bear with us. This is by far one of our greatest guests, and we don't want to miss anything. I want to ask you something about where you relate your personal life to this trust factor. And before you get too far into it, I want you to get my take on it when it comes to you personally. You and I shared the stage years ago in Nashville for the Mortgage Finance and Banking Association. At least that's the public nomenclature. And one of the things that convinced me to really start working with you and participate in other events where you were speaking as either an audience member or as a presenter, to certainly do MBS Highway, so on and so forth, was a tale you told the audience then about your son and his vision. And it was such a it was such a personal story. It was so difficult and yet heartwarming to hear that it created a bond, at least in my mind. And there were 200 people in the room, maybe more, but it created such a bond in my mind that there was never any equivocation that if I was going to be given the opportunity to work with Barry Habib, I was going to take it.
Thanks, man.
Because
Really,
of that personal connection that you laid out there for all of us to hear. And I suspect that that's something that you would instill and expect for people that are quote unquote in sales, but really want to quote unquote help people to do as well. It's not just about telling them the bad things about any particular transaction, and it's not just about necessarily looking at what's going to be best for their fiscal health and at time of transaction in 3 months, in a year, in 5, in 10, but that there's obviously a very personal connection, at least for you, with the people that you interact with.
yeah. Thank you. And so it's a couple of interesting things about that story. So it's really it's a crazy story with my son Jake, and I'll kind of recap it quickly and share it for people listening so they know what we're talking about here. But it took a long time for me to talk about it. And then you might recall I have the picture of Jake, at the prom, with the picture there. I would get very teary-eyed just at the end when I would show his picture there. So it took a long time for me to kind of get that under control so I could actually, talk about it. And so what happened when Jake was younger, Jake had a terrible fall, and he hit his face on the Belgian block. And oh God, the poor kid, I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for him. But, he had, his nose was broken, his orbital bone, and his face was really in bad shape. So we had some surgeries, and we were very concerned because his eye was right there. And what we wanted to do was make sure that eye was okay. And as it turned out, the eye was okay. But what we discovered was his other eye had something wrong with it, very wrong with it. And the vision was so bad that his brain, as a safety precaution, was shutting down communication to that eye. Now, we would have never known this if it hadn't been for the fall, right? So God works in very mysterious ways, right? Like we find this out only because something bad happens. So, I'm a big believer in sometimes something bad happens, but it does lead to opportunities, and we all go through stuff. And maybe you're going through something right now in your life and you're wondering, why me? Why am I dealing with this or going through this? And just have faith, because, if you look back at previous times, maybe you felt awful that you lost that job, but then that's the only way you found this new position that you're really happy with. Or you were heartbroken that that person that you really wanted to be with, things didn't work out, and it just was awful. But that would have never allowed you to find this wonderful new person that you're with. So just have faith that things happen. I don't want to get too far off the path. So we found this news out, and what it was that if he reached age 6, it would be irreversible. So we now have this small window of opportunity. So I go to the first doctor, and the doctor says, listen, we got to build communication up to the brain. And he says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take Jake's good eye and we're going to put a patch over it and force him to see through the bad eye. Now, Jake can't see really through the bad eye. So he's not going to be compliant. Kids make fun of him. He's crying. He's miserable. I'm beside myself, and you go to the doctor to see how he did a couple of months into this, and there's no improvement. He looks at the screen, he sees E, F, L, and then he can't, it's like, Dad, I can't see it. And I can see it. I mean, I can read it, And no matter what you might have achieved in your life, and I've had some small successes in my life, it means nothing because you're completely helpless to help your kid, and you just can't do anything. And so we realized that this was not working. So I took Jake to another doctor, and the other doctor says, yeah, well, that's because he can't see out of that eye. So we're going to give him glasses so he can now see better with the bad eye. But we still have to stop the vision from the good eye. So we're going to put, I swear to God, duct tape on the lens of the good eye. Now, I would see other kids with this, and I wouldn't understand why. Now I understood why. But so by doing that, presumably you now block the good eye and make them forced to see through that with the corrective lenses. And people would make fun of Jake, would look at him. He was miserable. And, he was always looking underneath it. And now I have to be an asshole and yell at my kid. All my kid wants to do is see. He's a young kid, just wants to see. And I got to yell, Jake, stop that. Makes you feel like a total piece of crap to do that, yell at your kid. But I thought I was doing the right thing. So we bring him back to the doctor and, Dad, I can't see. His vision's 2200. And so we realized that's not working. And then we find Dr. Caputo. And Dr. Caputo was the one that had done the research and found that atropine drops, if you put it in the good eye, it dilates the vision. And then you just put regular glasses, no, tape or patches like a pirate, nothing that kids are going to make fun of him. And now he's kind of forced to look through the eye that's bad, but with corrective lenses to help him. And so, look, I thought it would work, but I'm optimistic, but I'm skeptical, and we come back and all of a sudden now Jake can read the next slide. His vision went from 2200 to 2100. Now, 2100 is still not good. But, in life, if you were to find happiness, you could take the word progress and it kind of makes you happy to see progress, whatever you're doing, right? So I'm feeling better, although we have a long way to go. And then after a few more months, now Jake finally got around to around 2050. He never got better than that. He still will always need contacts or he'll always need glasses, but he's not blind in that eye, which he would have been. And that's because Dr. Caputo did the work to be a great advisor, because you can change people's lives. And every day I work really, really hard to stay on the cutting edge because I want to be the very best I could be, to be like Dr. Caputo, to be able to help people and give that advice. So, people ask me why I push myself so hard, and why I'm constantly reading and constantly learning. And it's because I want to be able to create and add value. And just think about what the world would look like if everybody who was a professional really treated them like that. And I would ask you all as mortgage professionals and as real estate agents to be that advisor, to go out of your way to be the smartest, most educated person, to add that value to your customer. And not just within your industry, because look, if you're in the mortgage business, you're in the money business, your product is money. What we sell is money. And money's multifaceted. You have to understand what the cost of money change would be, where it can be applied differently to create wealth. These are things that you have to go beyond the scope so that fintech companies can't replace you.
And that's going to be true of the real estate agents as well. For those of you that are in a panic over the Open Door, the Redfin, the zero cost, the iBuyer models, the Zillow, etc., same methodology applies.
Boy, real estate agents right now, they're on the front lines of this fintech war, but mortgage professionals are also feeling the pinch. But yeah, OfferPad, Open Door, Zillow, and many others, there's no shortage of financing from Silicon Valley for all of these companies, and they're all running in the red. None of them are making money, but they're just trying to take over market share. And when you really break it down, and I have, Adam, when you really break it down, the costs are far greater than what a real estate agent would cost them.
Oh, by a long shot, a good 50% or more.
Correct. And that's where the education comes in. The education that's why, and I'm not seeing this. Why are real estate agents not doing comparative videos? Why are they not becoming famous? Why are they not doing that? There's just a few people that are out there talking about it who aren't even real estate agents. Why aren't realtors themselves speaking up about this and saying, here's what you need to worry about? It might sound good that they'll do this, but is it worth $100,000? How long do you have to work to save $1,000? Now, I want you to think about that, because that's oftentimes what the difference is. It'll cost a seller $100,000. Let's say if it was $50,000. That's easy. Most transactions will cost them $50,000 more. How long do you have to work? Not to make $50,000.
To save
$50,000 is a very big difference, because, okay, so I've got to make like $90,000 so I can net maybe 50 or something, or $80,000 to net 50 after taxes, whatever, depending on the state you live in, right? I'm a little jaded. I'm in New Jersey. Okay. So but the average person would be doing really good if they saved $5,000 or $3,000.
I would 10% would be really good.
Really, really good. So if it's $3,000, how long does it take for you to save $50,000? Okay. I mean, think about that. 16 years, 17 years. Why would you give that up? That's 16 years worth of savings. People don't think in those terms. So before you get out there and want to go to OfferPad or Zillow or or Open Door or some of the others that are out there, Better and Realogy, they're all out there. Okay, please think about the difference. And is 16 years worth of savings worth it for the potential convenience of having it done a little bit sooner, or is it worth it to be a tiny bit more patient and now have the reward of what it would take you 16 years to accumulate? Why is nobody doing that video?
That's a good question. Well, actually, I think we're all aware that there are a few. They are not real estate agents. Thank you, Brian Stevens. We all know Brian Stevens and Frank
Array deserve so much credit for this. They really do. They've been on the forefront, and they deserve so much credit.
They do. And without pulling any punches, obviously, you included, but there's a small group that have been enormously influential in how my business operates, and what we're doing here with an open broadcast and a live video and so on and so forth is certainly something that I've learned from them. And I would say that the two of them have had different marketing rather than financial, but different impacts, but certainly as significant as yours on my long career.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. No, I love Brian and Frank.
Agreed. Yeah, great guys, and the wealth of knowledge, the information that they have to put out to not just loan originators and real estate agents for their marketing purposes, so on and so forth, but the content that they are able to provide the consumer, like what we're talking about here with the fintech type of stuff, it's mind-blowing. And
they're always on the cutting edge. Go ahead and go to the National Real Estate Post and just make sure that you subscribe to their daily videos.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good point. If you guys are not subscribed to the National Real Estate Post, you are missing out. Originators, agents alike, you are missing out on some amazing daily content from the two of them. Well, Barry, this has been amazing. And for those of you watching, I know we ran a little long, but I really wanted you to see how this all intertwined, and why the financial world and the tech world and lead generation and content marketing and a true heart, a legitimate cause, a legitimate concern for people, for the greater good, is really where you need to set your heart, set your mind, and that's what pays dividends. Barry has spent a lifetime doing it, and I promise you that if you pay attention to who he is and what he's doing, it'll rub off on you too.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate, Adam, all the great stuff you and Jen are doing, because you're helping so many people. How I Met Your Mortgage is an awesome segment. So
we're having fun with it too. So really thank you. And Jen, I know that we kind of cut you out of the loop today. Is there anything that you wanted to add? Anything from our conversation before we went live? Anything you want to ask Barry?
I think I'm good, but thank you.
Okay. So again, Barry, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you watching live or in syndication, we certainly appreciate your viewership as well. If you want more information about any of this stuff, any of our content, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you want a copy of my book, Just the Tips, any of this, use our text code below. That's CORE. Text CORE to 63566. And we will see you guys next week. Again, Barry, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for all the good you guys are doing.
Excellent. We'll talk to you guys next week.